Welcome to episode 164 of the Forward from 50 podcast, where we interview people over 50 who are pursuing new direction for their lives. It's an opportunity for men and women to tell their stories, their way, and in their own words. I'm Greg Gerber, the founder of Forward from 50, and your host for today's show. Today I'm speaking with Evan Sanchez. He's a certified life coach who discovered his true calling later in life and is now helping young adults and their parents to navigate the messy transitions from college into adulthood. Evan created a program called New Grad Launchpad, and in our conversation, he shares some insights that I think will resonate with listeners of any age. First, Evan talked about how surviving bankruptcy, cancer, and multiple layoffs led him to realize the importance of living in alignment with who you really are and not just what society expects of you. Second, we discussed why parents need to stop giving advice and start listening more, especially to adult children who are facing what he calls a quarter-life crisis. Third, Evan shared his unique coaching method that helps clients to uncover the gremlins, assumptions, interpretations, and limiting beliefs which are holding them back. Fourth, Evan offered specific strategies for parents and grandparents to better communicate with adult children. He encourages them to use phrases such as, "it sounds like," "it looks like," and "it feels like," and follow up those observations by asking, "is that right?" Finally, Evan emphasized that even after turning 50, it's never too late to rediscover what energizes you. Whether it's coaching, swimming at dawn, or picking up a musical instrument again, trying something new can unlock surprising joy and purpose. Evan's story is a great reminder that fulfillment doesn't come from chasing success. Rather, it comes from finding alignment. To tell us more, please welcome Evan Sanchez to the show. Thanks for joining me today, Evan. I really appreciate it. What prompted you to start a New Grad Launchpad? It sounds really interesting.
Yeah, so what I've noticed for myself, and this is my journey, is I'm 56 now, and I've been in and out of alignment my whole life. And I remember that feeling of being in alignment, and I remember being out of alignment. But especially when you're graduating from college and in your 20s, it's really messy. It's really hard to trust your intuition. And the other thing is that there's so much coming at us right now. And we really need to be thoughtful about the directions that we take. Because again, I've been in and out of alignment my whole life. So there's been periods of time when I've felt beaten up. I've had to reinvent myself more than once. I've survived cancer. I've survived bankruptcy. I've been laid off more times than I can count. And there were all these times where I just wasn't being true to myself. And I see people graduating from college, and I don't want them to go through the same struggles. I don't want them to have regrets when they're my age. That's really what prompted it. And that I think that it was hard enough growing up in our day and age when the paths were more clear cut. Now the paths are all over the place. The economy's not great. AI's coming in. And how do you know what to do when you get out of college if you haven't been passionate about something your whole life? And the other challenge that I saw is that parents, and I've experienced this, I think everybody has experienced this with their parents, is that the parents will give advice that's well-intended, but lands wrong. And so how do you guide someone who's struggling through what they call now a quarter-life crisis? There used to be just a midlife crisis. Now we have the quarter-life crisis. So if you're young adults going through a quarter-life crisis, as a parent, you feel that weight. You feel that very heavily. You want them to be career independent. You want them to have income. You want to have purpose. You want them to be able to live independently. But how do you do that? Because all the parenting manuals are geared towards younger kids, not towards older kids. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, is because A, I don't want any young adult to go through what I went through and have regrets when they're later on in life. And as a parent, it speaks to me. I have two kids, 18 and 21. Actually, one's about to turn 19. But getting them aligned with their path. And that's been so important. And and my humble brag is that they're very much in alignment with what they want to do.
Very good. I like that.
Yeah.
You had mentioned some things. You talk about kids having a harder time today. And I really think that is probably the case because when we were young, we had a pretty good idea of what was going to be expected of us. And now kids are going into college and the skills they're learning as freshmen and sophomore are obsolete by the time they're seniors, especially if they're fifth year seniors. And then you add into that where the entire finance industry seems to be preying on younger college graduates and just piling them up with debt. You need this car, you need these clothes, you need this, you need that, the other thing. And don't forget to buy a house. And it's just, kids are confused and I think they're victims in many ways.
I agree. And they feel like they're failing. They feel like they're not entering adulthood because they don't have the same things that we had. And it's not their fault that these happens, that the finance companies prey on them, to your point. But the challenge is that it may not be their fault, but it is their responsibility to do something about it. And as parents, how do we guide them? How do we make sure that they're not getting caught in the consumerism trap?
Right.
How do we make sure that they're being true to what they really want and not just taking a job for the money? Because if you go into finance and your passion is not finance, you're going to be miserable.
That's a 60-hour-a-week job, and it's miserable to work a 60-hour-a-week job that you hate.
And I've been there, done that too. And that's just soul draining, and I don't want anyone to go through that. And I think that you're right. It's much harder with AI, with social media. In ways, it's somewhat easier, right? Because if you want to be an entrepreneur, you don't have to advertise on cable news. You can throw up an Instagram account, but you have to be persistent. It takes there's more opportunity, but at the same time, there's less opportunity.
That's a good point. Do you think young adults realize that there is opportunity?
I think they get enamored with the successful content creators and don't understand what goes into that.
It looks so easy to be a content creator and influencer. How many people want to be influencers? They just think they share their opinion and everybody flocks to them because they want their opinion.
Exactly. And Mr. Beast did not become Mr. Beast. He sat there for years churning out videos and failing. And that's really hard to do because the challenge that they have is that in school, they're taught to be perfect, right? Get all the answers right. Check these boxes. Go to school for 4 years. You have to be on point, and that's what you're graded on ultimately, right? When you get out into the real world, it really becomes messy action. And so you have to look at that as, okay, I'm going to try this. I did a video about a week ago called the Pink Spoon Sample, or the Pink Spoon Theory. I haven't really coined it yet. But basically, how are you supposed to know what type of flavor of ice cream you like unless you sample some, right? If you want to be a dog trainer, try that. And the 20s is the best time for messy action. Yep. Because then you find out what excites you and what drains you. And people are built with these societal pressures of you have to have your career dialed in by 25. Yeah. You have to get married by 30. You have to have kids by this age. You have to have a house by this age. That's all societal constructs that limit you. That used to be the norm. It used to be easy to get a house by 25 or 28. A lot of people are not going to get a house.
So what caused you to want to do this, to help people coming out of college or who are just graduated or maybe have been graduated for a couple of years and seem stuck? What happened in your life to get you to that point?
Because I was stuck for a long time. I went into the music industry, which was really exciting in the 90s, worked for Atlantic Record. I had a whole bunch of hits and Sugar Ray, for people who know that band, Matchbox 20. It was a dream job. And I was in alignment during that time. But then I got burnt out. And then I was like, oh, advertising. And I was really passionate about that for a while. And then I'd get laid off a couple times, tried new things. They don't work out, go back to advertising. And again, I want people to ask themselves the right questions and for parents to ask the right questions. Because if the parents are doing things that are putting them on a path that's not in alignment, that's a dangerous road for them. So really, that's why I am passionate about this, is because once I found out that I could coach people and I got certified as a life coach, I was like, this lights me up more than anything that I've ever done. Changing people's lives, making an impact, and the people that I've coached, I see them breaking through barriers that were entrenched there for years in 3 to 6 months of coaching. It's just absolutely amazing when you take the time to really look and really do the work, do the hard work to figure out what you really like and what you don't.
I think that's a very important thing to mention as well, because it's who we hang around with that gives us the advice. And we often act on that advice. And sometimes we need wiser exterior sources providing us with direction that might be outside the box that we've been taught for many years.
I do have a belief, though, and it may be an unpopular opinion, but I'll throw it out there. And that is that I believe that all the answers that everyone is looking for is inside them. That their heart and mind really know what to do. And yes, they can get advice. They have to use critical thinking and say, does this make sense for me? Does this not make sense for me? But in my coaching practice, what I do is I try not to direct them towards certain paths. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out what is underneath what they're telling me. And what's really interesting is, and I learned this term through my coaching certification, is a term called GAIL. Okay? GAIL. And it stands for 4 things. That we all have gremlins, which are the nasty thoughts that we beat ourselves up with, right? Not the movie from the 80s. Very different. Then you have assumptions. You're making assumptions about what's happening. If somebody cuts you off and if somebody treats you badly, you assume that they hate you. Right? True or not true? You have interpretations. Like I can say something to you and you interpret it as an attack, and that's not what I was trying to do.
Right.
But you can interpret it incorrectly. And then you have limiting beliefs. So those are the 4 things that when I'm coaching someone that I'm looking for. And as we dig deeper and deeper, then we find out what is their assumption, what is their interpretation, what is the gremlin that's holding them back. And 9 times out of 10 when I'm doing coaching session, somebody learns something about themselves that they didn't really know, that they hadn't thought of on their own.
Yeah, those aha moments are awesome.
Yeah, and it's just, for me, it's a great feeling. For them, it's a great feeling because they just learned more about themselves. And I always feel like the more you learn about yourself, the better you can function and the higher you can go. You want to reach your highest potential.
Are you coaching people online or in person?
Online.
Are you doing men and women or both?
Both. And I'm doing adults, and sometimes I'm doing 25-year-olds.
Okay.
And they have to want to do it. I'm not going to force anyone to do it. But it's very different from therapy because therapy is really talking things out. I'm trying to uncover things. Not necessarily going into the past. I might touch on the past, but I'm not going to analyze the past. I may say, where did you get that assumption from? Or where did you get that limiting belief from? But we're going to go back to the limiting belief and how to conquer it. Right? So those are the types of things that through my coaching that I'm able to uncover. And that's why people do very well. They make breakthroughs and they learn more about themselves. And it just lights me up.
In which ways are parents getting in the way of their kids?
So the way they're getting in the way is they're giving advice. And that's so natural for a parent to do. When they were 5, we said, don't touch the stove.
Yeah.
And we were so used to giving advice and saying, this is how the world works and telling them how we interpret it. But when they get into their 18, 20s, they're not listening to our advice anymore. Even if I were to give you, Greg, advice right now, unsolicited advice, it would feel like some sort of judgment. Even if I'm well-intended and you're well-intended,
I agree.
Right?
Yep.
It would feel like judgment. And to somebody who's still in their 20s, I remember being in my 20s, everything felt heavier. Every emotion felt heavier. So imagine you're in your 20s and your parent is giving you advice, how heavy that feels. It feels like judgment. It feels like shame. It feels like an attack. And that's not the way you intended it at all. But what you were giving out was not being received. So what I tell parents to do is that you cannot give advice. And that's a really hard thing because you have years and years of training. You're a black belt in giving advice. And now you have to be like not giving advice. And that's one of the hardest things that I have to tell parents to do. And also, when they're talking to their young adults, it's so important for them to acknowledge and validate what they're feeling. Whatever they're feeling is completely right. You can't say, you shouldn't feel that way. No. If they say, I'm feeling scared because I'm worried about going into a crowded room and networking, you just paraphrase it back to them and says, it sounds like you're really scared about going into these rooms and starting to network. You just repeated what they said, repeated the emotion. But in that moment, it's such a critical moment. They're feeling seen and heard. You just repeated what they said to you, but they're feeling seen and heard. And what I tell parents is start the sentence out with, it sounds like, it looks, and it feels. And then you can say, is that right?
That takes away a lot of judgment, I would imagine. Because it validates what they're trying to say.
And then you can say, is that right? Did I get it right? If they say that's right, you're on the right path. If they say you're right, a little tweaking needs to be done.
Okay.
But if they say that's right, that's the ultimate response that you're going for.
What did it take you to become a certified life coach? Tell us about that process.
Oh, it was like 9 months of training, a lot of work, a lot of coaching other people, I had to be coached too, a lot of all-day webinars. It was a 9-month process. And they really give you a lot of information, and it feels like a fire hose. It really does. And so one of the things that I learned, and this is really interesting, is that everybody that we come in contact with has an energy level when they're in a normal, good state, right? You have that energy level when you're in calm, when you're in control, and you're feeling good, you can handle things. But when you're under stress or under pressure, your energy goes down. Your decision-making abilities go down too. You can't make life-changing decisions when you're depressed, or you shouldn't, right? That's why they say if somebody dies, don't make any financial decisions for 30 days, things like that. So everybody has those two levels, normal operating levels, and then their under stress level. And that's the key, is by acknowledging and validating, and I'll give you another secret here, and that is by acknowledging and validating them, you're raising their energy level. And when they raise their energy level, then they can make better decisions.
And that's more creative thinking, I would imagine.
Right. And the last tip is really ask what or how questions. So after you've acknowledged and validated, then ask, what would that look like? How does that feel to you? Things like that. Because what and how questions are calibrating questions. What those questions do specifically is they make you reflect and come up with an answer. If you said, I want to be an acrobat in a circus, right? You could say, it sounds like you want to be an acrobat in circuses. That sounds exciting to you. Is that right? And they say, yes, that's right. And then you would say, what would that look like? What would you have to do to get there? And they have to come up with a plan. So what you did right there is you made them come up with a plan, and guess who's ready to follow their own plan?
Good point, because it's their idea and they have almost immediate buy-in on their ideas.
They have, exactly, you nailed it on the head, Greg. They have buy-in on their idea because they came up with it. When you come up with the idea, it's not going to resonate. I can tell somebody, you know what, you would be really good at guitar. But if they don't want to play the guitar,
Exactly.
if they want to play the drums or something else, that's not going to resonate. So that's why those are the strategies that I teach parents and even grandparents, because sometimes the grandparents see their children or their grandchildren going down these wrong paths too.
That's right. So the same thing would apply to grandparents as it does to parents?
Yeah,
Same kind
absolutely.
of strategies?
Absolutely. In fact, it works for just about anyone.
Right. I suppose it is much better than asking yes and no answers where they just say yes or no and that's it. There's nothing else to talk about once they've made that answer.
You can say, did you apply for jobs today? But that feels like an attack. Or you could say, what sounds interesting to you right now? What are you excited about right now? Completely different.
Good idea. When you were going through this training to be a coach, did you go through a specific school or were you self-taught?
No, specific school.
Okay.
It was a capital investment.
Oh, it was?
Both in terms of time and money, yes.
If somebody over 50 wanted to jump in and become a life coach, what should they budget for?
Anywhere from 10 to 15,000.
Wow. That would be a significant investment. And you said it took how many years?
It took 9 months.
9 months.
So less than a year, but it was a tremendous amount of work, you know.
It's a compact and aggressive training program, it sounds.
Yes.
Yeah. Super.
Yes. Yeah. So it's fantastic. I highly recommend it.
You had talked to me before we started this about how people like to be either helped, heard, or hugged. And can you elaborate on that for my audience?
Yeah. See, I love that phrase because I think we all know people. I know people in my family that will ask for advice, but they don't really want it. And so I don't give that to them. But a lot of times, and we talk about this as husbands too, right? Especially people, I had to learn that when my wife was talking to me, she just wanted to be heard. She did not want to be helped. She may have wanted to be hugged, right? But I love that phrase because you can specifically ask that question. If somebody's talking to you, you can specifically say, do you want to be helped, heard, or hugged? And that's going to save a lot of time and energy. And it doesn't come off as nasty either. It doesn't come off as offensive. It just comes off as, what am I doing here? What's the direction of this? Because as men, we're taught to just fix the problem.
Right.
So we immediately go into advice mode, right? If my wife's complaining about her day or complaining about a coworker, I was like, you should do this and this.
That's right.
And that's not what she wants right now. And so it helps in all relationships to just have that frank discussion of what can I help you with right now? You want to be helped, heard, or hugged, or a combination.
That makes sense. Sounds like a great strategy for any relationship to prevent guys like us from jumping in to fix a problem. They just want to talk about it, kind of thing. And you can then change your line of questioning to just talk about it rather than proposing ideas or solutions that they're not looking for.
And even adding on those what or how questions, or it sounds like, or it looks like, or it feels, don't make it. Again, these are tactics that work in all relationships. In fact, some of these tactics I got from an FBI hostage negotiator. And somebody commented to me like, oh, FBI hostage negotiating and parenting sound related. And I'm like, not really. I appreciate the joke, but these are the same tactics, right? That work in high pressure situations, in life and death situations. And fortunately, most of us are not going to encounter those types of situations.
That's a good point.
Right? But we can still learn from them, even though it's in a different genre, even though it's in a different field. Those tactics still work because we're all humans. And we all have feelings and we all want to be seen and heard. And when we're seen and heard, that's when we'll grow.
I would agree with that.
That phrase has changed my life too, because like when I'm being coached and I know what they're doing, but I feel better.
Before you started all of this, you said that you were involved in the music industry. Are you still doing music things for fun?
I have a trumpet off to the side here. I have a guitar off to the side here. I wish I could tell you that I've picked them up recently, but I did take one of my trumpets to get them shined up. So I'm hoping to get back into it. But that's what led me into all of the music industry, was because in the 80s, I was in marching band. I played trumpet. I found what aligned with me in 6th grade and carried that through all up until high school. And it just felt so good. Right? So I just kept on doing it. And I still have these trumpets and I still hope to get back to them. The guitar was a later thing, but what spurred my interest of the music industry in the 90s.
It sounds neat that you've had that interest in high school, then it dissipated as you pursued your career. And now you're saying, I have some time. Maybe I'll pick this up again. Would you join like a community band, or would you just?
Yeah, I would love to do that. Yeah, I probably should do that. Again, you have to figure out, and we've all lived these lives where we've learned what energizes us and what drains us. But when you're in your 20s, you don't have that knowledge yet, right? You don't have that knowledge that this drains me.
I agree, because there were years where people were saying, you're so good with technology, you should go into tech support and things like that. And it was like, kill me now. It is so stressful to do that. Help people to figure out why their computers and their printers aren't working and things like that. Other people thrive in that kind of stuff, and I'm good at it, but I hate doing it.
Because it doesn't align with you.
Exactly.
It doesn't align with you. You would dread every day of going to work and being an IT specialist. But you have to have that trial and error. And I don't think that's rewarded enough in our culture to fail or to make mistakes.
When should kids be doing this? Should they be doing it earlier, like in high school, trying all of these kinds of things? Or is this something that we should be doing throughout our entire lives?
I would say all of the above, because, you know, what energized me 20 years ago does not energize me today. Mm-hmm. And then you have the things that, like, I really enjoyed running in my 20s, but not happening after 50. So you have to pivot to find things that you enjoy. My son, and most people do this, most boys do this, where they try baseball, they try football, they try basketball. They try all these sports until they find their sport. They look at soccer. They do all these things. And that's rewarded when we're younger, right? Try a different sport, try a different instrument, try this. Go into that club, go into that club. Once we're 21 and once we graduate college, nobody's saying that anymore.
Right.
Nobody's saying, hey, what really lights you up right now? Your 14-year-old self may have been really excited about Rubik's Cubes, solving them. But at 22, that may not be a passion for you anymore.
But there might be something in there that you are passionate about that came out in solving the Rubik's Cube that you need to find at this point. It might have been the problem-solving thing. So maybe it's problem-solving puzzles that you would like to do now rather than flipping around with the Rubik's Cube.
It could be. My son did Rubik's Cube, and he said, there's all these algorithms, Dad. They're really easy to memorize. I was like, I don't know about that. But he was good at pattern recognition and algorithms. And so he can take that experience to what he's working on in college, which is marine science, because it's a lot of pattern recognition and trying to figure things out. So it's that same sort of, to your point, it's that same sort of problem solving, but just done in a different way. And so I think, yeah, we all do that, where there's times in our lives where we want to be dancing. There's times in our lives when we want to be playing trumpet, and sometimes going back to that. But I think you just have to be in touch with yourself and realize that, and be true to yourself and not worrying about failing. One of the things I did at 49 was, I've been swimming my whole life, but not on a team or not regularly. I'm an okay swimmer, right? But I always knew that I wanted to be in the master swim program. And so I started going to the pool and I did a lap. Then I did 3 laps. Then I did 5 laps. Then I did 10 laps. It took time and consistency, but eventually I got myself into that master swim program, and I was doing 3 to 5 miles a week, which is that's a lot of swimming.
It is.
It was like an hour and 15 minutes, 3 times a week, being in a cold pool at 5:30. Not just being at the pool, but being in the pool, in the water at 5:30.
That'll wake you up at 5:30.
Yeah, especially when you're in the outside pool. Oh my God.
Exactly.
But in the outside pool, it's 32 degrees outside. You're shivering. And they're like, go swim. And I'm like, oh, I was so happy to get in that water because it felt great after being in 32 degrees because it was like 70.
Right, exactly. Good point.
But the point is that I always wanted to do that. And I always knew that I was going to do that. And then when I did it, it just felt so good. And I did it for about 5 years before my shoulders started having problems. The point is that you have to be willing to try new things at any age.
When it comes to coaching, who is most stuck? Is it young men or young women?
I think it's more men.
Men. Why is that?
I think men mature later.
Right.
Women mature earlier. Women's are more in touch with their emotions and in touch with their intuition than men are. I think societal pressures of you have to be successful and you have to have a serial entrepreneur and you have to have the fancy cars and fancy houses and stuff like that. And that if you don't have money, then you're not a provider. And that's still very much part of and then they don't see any straight line because there is no straight line and or very few of them. And so they feel like a failure and they feel like I just can't make it because I'm not in STEM. I didn't go into medical or engineering or science or technology or anything like that, which has a clear-cut path. I got a degree in a liberal arts field or history or philosophy or psychology even. So I think they just feel a lot of pressure, and I think that it's a rough time for guys.
Do parents?
I'm actually reading a book on that's really interesting by Scott Holloway that I'm spacing on it. It's like Notes from a Man or something like that. I'll get it, but it's a really good book.
Super. When it comes to parents and grandparents, are we being too over-coddling sometimes with our children? Does there come to a point where we have to let them go, even though we know they might fail, but then fail forward in that process?
100%. 100%. We want to protect them from all the bad things that could possibly happen to them because that's our nature. If your kid's in any sort of pain, emotional or physical, you would pay $1 million just to take it away from them. So I think that, yeah, we need to let them fail and see that as success. We need to reward behavior. If they go down a direction and it's a totally wrong direction, see that as a win. If they got a degree in something and they're not passionate about it, see it as a win.
Many times they get a degree because they feel pressured to go in that direction from well-meaning friends and family members who tell them, I've been a doctor, you have to be a doctor, or it's always been our family being involved in this particular industry, or you've got to go get a job, work 30 years like I did, and then have a nice pension. That doesn't exist anymore.
No, it's a completely different world, and we can't expect, even if you're making $17, $20 an hour and you have a job, you have to have 13 roommates.
Exactly.
When we were young, if we worked a summer, we could probably pay tuition for our college.
Easily. That's
Easily.
Exactly right. Yep.
Easily.
And that's the path that many of us took as we graduated, got a job, got an apartment with a roommate, and we just started building our lives that way. And it's just harder to do nowadays because jobs aren't paying enough to even have a roommate to split a $1,800 rental cost for an apartment.
Yeah, exactly. It's really hard. The advantage, but there is opportunity as well in terms of remote work. So that opens things up. But yeah, for most people, a $20 an hour job is not going to get them a 1-bedroom. Or if it does, it's not going to be a very nice one.
In a nice neighborhood, that's for sure.
Or it's not going to be in a good neighborhood. Yes.
There's a growing concern of the number of parents who are calling into jobs on behalf of their children. And for me, that just seems to be counterproductive. At some point, the kids have to be grown up enough to handle their own problems and confront the boss, not have mom and dad call up and say, why is Johnny not getting the raise that he should be getting at this point? Or my son is sick and won't be in today. At just some point, the young adults have to act like adults, don't they?
Absolutely. And I think what's happened was, like, I'm a Gen Xer and pretty much kids were outside all the time, just come home for dinner. It was very laissez-faire. And in my personal opinion, I think we overcorrected, right? There is a middle ground of not coddling them. But again, if they don't feel seen and heard, they're not going to grow. So if you're applying for jobs for them, it's fine to work on it, maybe help them with a resume, stuff like that. I think that's totally fine. I don't see a problem. A mock interview, anything like this, have a list of questions and they have answers, any sort of thing like that. But if they're actually doing the work for them, it's like studying for a test. You can have somebody help you study for a test, but you got to take the test. And I think that's a hard thing to let go of because we're not willing to embrace that failure.
And that's a problem because of AI now. So many young people are using AI to do their homework and to come up with ideas, and they learn what to think about, but not how to think, how to be creative and how to process that information. So they share some of that blame as well.
Yeah, exactly. Because I saw a comedian, she was really funny. She said, okay, in the 80s, we did something really crazy. It was called critical thinking. We would take one view and another view, and then come up with our own decision. But yes, it is dangerous because, and even for us, right, as we get older, I can use AI all day and offload the thinking. And when it comes to travel planning or something like that, yeah, I may do it for that. But when it comes to life decisions, we have to remember that AI is a tool. And
AI is a fool many times.
AI is a fool. And like, I don't like what somebody called it Chatty G just telling me, that all my ideas are awesome.
Right.
Because they're not. So anything, we have to look at the full range of it. But yes, AI is dangerous for a lot of kids because it's a very easy trap to get into. And I think for college kids, but there's AI detectors now and all this sort of stuff. But still, it's a dangerous time not to be critically thinking.
I agree. If you could roll the clock back, is there anything you'd do differently with your life?
What would I do differently?
Especially after turning 50?
Especially after turning 50. Always exercise more. That's a given. I probably, what I probably should have done because of my interest in music is I probably should have been an audio engineer. And I was going down that path for a little bit and I turned away from it.
Could you do that now?
What's that?
Could you do that now?
I could.
There's so many podcasts out there that people like me might consider hiring people to download all the tech stuff and make it sound even better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I get more energy out of coaching than anything else. That's what really lights me up.
Okay. And so you found that after turning 50, and it's really invigorating you at this stage in your life.
Exactly. 100%.
Do you have any advice for anybody who might be over 50 and struggling to identify what could give their life more meaning and purpose?
I think it's just go with your intuition. If even 20% of you is saying, I want to try pottery, right? Do that, check it off the list. Don't be afraid to experiment just because we're older. Our minds still work great. And I think that just find what you're interested in and keep failing is what I would give it. It would be my advice.
Fail forward. Right.
Fail forward, fail fast, figure it out and try golf, try pickleball, try badminton, try whatever you want that feels good and see if it resonates with you. Because
should people be trying for extended period of time rather than once and I didn't like it and move on? Or should they be critical and say, okay, let me try it 2 or 3 times and then decide if I'm going to like this?
It probably needs to try for a period of time.
Okay.
But I think if they really hate it, they'll know right away.
Exactly. Right. Very good point.
If you're not willing to work at it, then that's a problem. We all go through I don't want to go to the gym phase. But if you give it a while, and especially if you have somebody on that you're working with, like coaching you and stuff like that, makes all the difference.
That's right. How can people connect with you if they would like to learn more about you or to hire you as a coach?
Sure. The best way is through LinkedIn. My name is Evan Sanchez, Evan S. Sanchez. I should come up pretty easily. There's not too many Evan Sanchez's. So my LinkedIn profile is all built out with how to contact me. You can direct message me there. That's the best way. But I also have Instagram. I also have a YouTube channel, which has a whole bunch of videos that would be very helpful for a lot of people, especially when their young adults are stuck at home and you're trying to get them out of the house. I did a video on that recently that I'm very proud of because I think it gives you a lot of good tips on how to handle that situation without being militant. So yeah, those are the best ways to get in touch with me. I also have a website, obviously. It's a little bit of a mouthful. It's newgradlaunchpadcoaching.com. So that's another way. But LinkedIn is probably the easiest way to get in touch with me.
Very good. Thank you for sharing your story with me today. I really appreciate it. I wish you the best of luck as you continue to help other people to get launched in life. That sounds like it's a very rewarding thing to be doing in your 50s.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me on the podcast, Greg. I really appreciate it.
After trying several career paths, including the music industry and advertising, Evan Sanchez realized he felt most alive when he was helping others to uncover what truly lights them up. That discovery led him to become a certified life coach, and today, Evan uses his lived experiences to guide others toward clarity, confidence, and forward momentum. One of the most important lessons Evan shares is that growth happens when people feel seen and heard. His approach to coaching isn't about giving advice, rather it's about asking the right questions, especially what and how, in order to help people find their own answers. He believes parents and grandparents can better support young adults by focusing on acknowledgement and validation rather than instruction or correction. Evan also encourages people over 50 to keep exploring, whether it's mastering a new skill, joining a club, or rediscovering an old hobby. Simply staying curious and open to experimentation is key to finding purpose in midlife and beyond. To learn more about Evan or to inquire about his coaching services, the best way to reach him is through LinkedIn. You can also visit his website at newgradlaunchpadcoaching.com or check out his YouTube and Instagram channels for more insights and strategies. That's all for this week's show. If you're doing something new in your life after turning 50 and it gives you meaning and purpose, then I'd enjoy hearing your story. Email me at greg@forwardfrom50.com and I'll send you information about scheduling an interview. Thank you for listening.